Maria, a relentless mother with secrets buried deep, walks 20 miles to work every single day. No excuses, no complaints. She's fighting a silent war, refusing help, clinging to the belief that her grueling, unspoken endurance is the only key to unlocking a better life for her children. But one shadowy morning, Officer Rohn, a small-town cop with a sharp eye, catches sight of her haunting routine and can't look away. What begins as a flicker of curiosity ignites into a chilling pursuit as he tails her, step by step, into the unknown. What he uncovers isn't just a reason. It's a heart-stopping truth that could unravel everything. Why would Maria push herself through this relentless torment? What dark secret did Rohn stumble upon that jolted an entire town into a frenzy of action? You won't believe what's coming. Stick around to find out. Before we plunge into this mystery, drop a comment. Where are you watching from today? If this tale of grit, shadows, and unexpected twists hooks you, smash that subscribe button now. You won't want to miss a second. A faint, eerie hum from an ancient alarm clock sliced through the pre-dawn stillness, jolting Maria awake from a restless, dream-haunted sleep. With a mechanical grace, she silenced it, her feet hitting the icy, groaning floorboards of her cramped bedroom. The clock's ghostly glow flickered. 3:45 a.m. Maria crept through the cramped house, careful not to wake her sleeping children. In the dim kitchen, she prepared a simple breakfast of toast and instant coffee. As she ate, her gaze drifted to the window, where the first hints of dawn were barely visible on the horizon. At precisely 4 a.m., Maria stepped out of her rundown house on the outskirts of town. The cool morning air nipped at her skin as she began her long journey. Her worn sneakers, patched with duct tape, scuffed against the rough pavement as she set off down the empty road. 20 miles lay ahead of her, a distance that would daunt most. But for Maria, it was a daily ritual. She was a cleaner at St. Mary's Hospital, and this walk was her lifeline to that job. As she walked, fleeting memories of better days flitted through her mind, days when her trusty old car had carried her swiftly to work. But those days were long gone, the car now a rusting hulk in her overgrown backyard. One day, Maria whispered to herself, her breath visible in the cool air, "One day I'll get you fixed up, old girl." As she walked, the sky gradually lightened, revealing the world around her. The outskirts of town gave way to more populated areas, and soon early risers began to appear on the streets. Some, familiar with Maria's daily trek, offered friendly waves or nods. "Morning, Maria," called Mr. Johnson, an elderly man tending to his garden. "Beautiful day ahead." Maria smiled warmly. "Sure is, Mr. Johnson. You have a good one." Not all interactions were as pleasant. As Maria passed through a more affluent neighborhood, she noticed curtains twitching and suspicious glances cast her way. One woman even clutched her purse, tighter as Maria walked by. But Maria kept her head high, her smile unwavering. "Good morning, ma'am," she said politely to the woman, who merely huffed and hurried away. As the sun climbed higher, fatigue began to set in. Maria's feet ached, and her muscles protested with each step. But she pushed on, driven by thoughts of her children, Jaden and Aisha, still sleeping peacefully at home. "This is for them," Maria reminded herself, wincing as she felt a blister forming on her heel. Everything is for them. She thought of Jaden, now 12, with his quick mind and love for science, and little Aisha, just 7, whose artistic talent already shone brightly. They deserved so much more than the hand life had dealt them, and Maria was determined to give them every opportunity she could. As she walked, Maria allowed herself to dream. She imagined a future where she didn't have to choose between paying for school supplies and keeping the lights on. A future where her children could pursue their passions without the weight of poverty holding them back. "One step at a time," she murmured, both to herself and to her aching feet. The hospital came into view just as the morning rush hour traffic began to build. Maria quickened her pace, not wanting to be late. As she approached the staff entrance, she caught her reflection in a window, her hair slightly disheveled, dark circles under her eyes, but still standing tall. "Morning, Maria," called Sandra, a nurse just finishing the night shift. "How do you do it every day?" Maria grinned. "One foot in front of the other, Sandra. That's all it takes." Inside, Maria changed into her work uniform and gathered her cleaning supplies. As she began her rounds, the fatigue of her long walk melted away, replaced by the satisfaction of a job well done. She took pride in her work, knowing that her efforts contributed to the well-being of patients and staff alike. During her lunch break, Maria sat alone in the cafeteria, savoring a simple sandwich she had packed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jaden. "Hope you're having a good day, Mom. Love you." Maria's eyes misted over as she typed a reply. Her children never complained about their circumstances, never asked why she couldn't drive them to school or buy them new clothes. Their resilience and understanding only strengthened her resolve. As her shift ended, Maria steeled herself for the long walk home. The thought of seeing her children gave her renewed energy, and she set off with determination. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, but Maria barely noticed, lost in thoughts of the evening ahead. She imagined helping Jaden with his science homework, listening to Aisha's animated stories about her day at school. These simple moments were what made the long, grueling walks worthwhile. As Maria neared her neighborhood, she noticed a police car parked by the side of the road. The officer inside seemed to be watching her intently. For a moment, anxiety fluttered in her chest. Had something happened? Were her children okay? But the officer simply nodded as she passed, and Maria returned, the gesture with a polite smile. She had noticed this particular officer more frequently lately, always observing from a distance. It made her slightly uneasy, but she brushed the feeling aside. She had done nothing wrong after all. Finally, as the sun began to set, Maria turned onto her street. Despite the exhaustion that weighed heavily on her, she quickened her pace, eager to be home. As she approached her house, the front door burst open, and two small figures came racing out. "Mom!" Aisha cried, flinging herself into Maria's arms. Jaden followed close behind, his face split by a wide grin. Maria hugged them tightly, the aches and pains of her long day melting away in their embrace. "Hey, my loves," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I missed you so much." As they entered the house together, Maria felt a renewed sense of purpose. Yes, life was hard. Yes, the daily grind sometimes felt overwhelming. But moments like these, surrounded by the love of her children, made every step of her journey worthwhile. Later that night, as Maria tucked her children into bed, Aisha asked sleepily, "Mommy, why do you have to leave so early every day?" Maria smoothed her daughter's hair, choosing her words carefully. "Well, sweetie, sometimes we have to work extra hard to make our dreams come true. But don't you worry. Everything I do for you and your brother." As she turned out the lights and retreated to her own room, Maria allowed herself a moment of vulnerability. She sank onto her bed, muscles screaming in protest, and let out a quiet sigh. Tomorrow would bring another 20-mile journey, another day of hardship and struggle. But as Maria set her alarm for another early morning, she felt a flicker of hope in her heart. One day things would be better. One day her sacrifices would pay off. And until then, she would keep walking, one step at a time, for the love of her children and the promise of a brighter future. Officer Mark Rohn pulled his patrol car into the parking lot of Joe's Diner. The familiar neon sign flickering in the pre-dawn darkness. He'd been on the night shift for the past week, and the promise of hot coffee and a hearty breakfast before heading home was too tempting to pass up. As he stepped out of his vehicle, a movement caught his eye. A lone figure was walking briskly down the sidewalk, silhouetted against the faint glow of the horizon. Rohn squinted. recognition dawning on his face. It was that woman again, the one he'd seen walking the Sam route nearly every day for the past few months. Curiosity piqued, Rohn decided the coffee could wait. He climbed back into his patrol car and slowly drove alongside the woman, keeping a respectful distance. As he drew closer, he could make out more details. She was African American, probably in her mid-30s, with a determined set to her shoulders. Despite the obvious fatigue in her stride, Rohn had been a cop in this town for over a decade. He prided himself on knowing most of the residents, at least by sight. But this woman was a mystery. He'd seen her countless times, always walking, always alone, regardless of the weather or time of day. At first, he'd assumed it was her choice. Maybe she enjoyed the exercise or the solitude, but something about her persistence nagged at him. He pulled up alongside her, rolling down his window. "Excuse me, ma'am." The woman startled slightly, then turned to face him. Despite the early hour and the long walk ahead of her, she managed a polite smile. "Yes, officer? I couldn't help but notice you walking. It's awfully early, and it looks like you've got quite a journey ahead. Would you like a ride somewhere?" The woman's smile remained, but Rohn noticed a flicker of something, hesitation, fear, in her eyes. "That's very kind of you, officer, but I'm fine. I'm used to walking." Rohn nodded, trying to put her at ease. "I understand. Just wanted to make sure you're all right. You have a good day now." "You too, officer. Thank you." As Rohn drove away, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this woman's story. Why would anyone choose to walk such long distances every day? And why did she seem so reluctant to accept help? Over the next few weeks, Rohn found himself paying more attention to the woman's routine. He'd see her in the early mornings, walking with purpose toward the center of town. Then in the evenings, he'd spot her again, retracing her steps with a noticeable slump to her shoulders. One particularly rainy morning, Rohn decided to follow her discreetly. He kept his patrol car at a distance, watching as she trudged through puddles, her thin jacket providing little protection against the downpour. Despite the miserable conditions, she never broke her stride or sought shelter. As the days passed, Rohn began to notice more details. The woman's shoes were worn almost to the point of falling apart. Her clothes, while clean, were faded and patched in places. And there was a weariness to her movements that seemed to go beyond simple physical fatigue. Rohn found himself thinking about the woman even when he was off duty. He mentioned her to his wife over dinner one night. "I just can't figure it out, Sarah. Why would anyone put themselves through that every single day?" Sarah, always the more empathetic of the two, suggested, "Maybe she doesn't have a choice, Mark. Have you considered that?" The thought had crossed Rohn's mind, but he'd dismissed it. Surely, in this day and age, with public transportation and ride-sharing apps, no one would be forced to walk such long distances. But Sarah's words stuck with him, adding another layer to the mystery. A few days later, Rohn was on an early morning patrol when he spotted the woman again. This time, he noticed she was limping slightly. Concerned, he pulled up beside her. Once more. "Good morning," he said, trying to keep his tone casual. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but are you all right? I couldn't help but notice you're limping a bit." The woman seemed surprised by his observation. For a moment, her carefully maintained facade slipped, revealing a flash of pain and exhaustion. But just as quickly, it was replaced by that now familiar, polite smile. "I'm fine, officer. Just a little sore from all the walking. Nothing to worry about." Rohn hesitated, then said, "Look, I know it's not my place, but I've seen you walking this route almost every day for months now. That's got to be, what, 15, 20 miles round trip? If you're in some kind of trouble or need help." "I appreciate your concern," the woman interrupted, her voice firm but not unkind. "But really, I'm okay. This is just what I need to do." Before Rohn could respond, she gave him a small wave and continued on her way, her limp barely noticeable now as she picked up her pace. Rohn watched her go, feeling a mix of frustration and admiration. Whatever her reasons, this woman's determination was truly remarkable. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right about the situation. Over the next few weeks, Rohn found himself adjusting his patrol route to intersect with the woman's path more often. He never approached her directly again, respecting her clear desire for privacy. But he watched, and he learned. He noticed how she always took the same route, never deviating, even when construction or traffic might have made a detour easier. He saw how she interacted with others along the way, always polite, often with a kind word or gesture, but never stopping for long conversations. One morning, Rohn decided to follow her all the way to her destination. He kept well back, not wanting to make her uncomfortable. The journey took nearly 4 hours, and Rohn found himself marveling at the woman's stamina. Finally, she arrived at St. Mary's Hospital on the other side of town. Rohn watched as she entered through a side door marked "Staff Only," a hospital employee. That explained the early morning departures and late evening returns, but it raised even more questions. Why would a hospital employee be forced to walk so far to work? Surely they had some kind of transportation assistance program. Over the next few days, Rohn found himself paying closer attention to the hospital employees he encountered during his patrols. He struck up casual conversations, carefully probing for information about transportation benefits or carpooling programs. What he learned troubled him. While the hospital did offer some transportation assistance, it was limited and often oversubscribed. Many employees, especially those in lower-paying positions, struggled with the commute. One evening, Rohn was parked near the hospital, ostensibly monitoring traffic but really waiting to see if the woman would emerge. As the sun began to set, he spotted her familiar figure exiting the staff door. Even from a distance, Rohn could see the toll the day had taken on her. Her shoulders were slumped, her steps slow and measured. As she passed under a streetlight, he noticed dark stains on her white uniform shoes, probably from standing all day. Without really thinking about it, Rohn started his car and began to follow her at a discreet distance. The trek back seemed even longer than the morning journey. The woman stopped several times to rest, leaning against buildings or bus stop shelters. Each time, Rohn felt an urge to offer her a ride, but he held back, remembering her previous refusals. As they neared the outskirts of town, the streets became darker and less populated. Rohn found himself growing concerned for the woman's safety. He'd worked this beat long enough to know that this area could be dangerous after dark. Just as he was considering approaching her one last time, the woman turned down a small side street. Rohn followed, keeping his headlights off to avoid detection. He watched as she approached a small, rundown house at the end of the street. Before she reached the door, it burst open, and 2 small children came running out. Even from his position down the street, Rohn could hear their excited voices. "Mommy, you're home!" The woman's entire demeanor changed. The exhaustion seemed to melt away as she knelt to embrace her children, her face lit up with a genuine smile that Rohn had never seen before. As the little family disappeared into the house, Rohn sat in his car, processing what he'd seen. Everything suddenly made sense. The long walks, the refusal of help, the determination to keep going no matter what. She wasn't walking because she enjoyed it or because she had some misguided sense of independence. She was walking because she had to, because those children were depending on her. Rohn drove home that night with a heavy heart and a mind full of questions. How long had this been going on? What circumstances had led to this situation? And most importantly, what could he do to help? As he pulled into his own driveway, Rohn made a decision. He couldn't ignore this anymore. Tomorrow, he would find a way to talk to the woman properly, to understand her story and see if there was any way he could assist. But as he drifted off to sleep that night, one image stayed with him. The sight of that tired, determined woman transforming into a joyful mother the moment she saw her children. It was a powerful reminder of the strength of the human spirit and the lengths people will go to for those they love. The next morning, Rohn woke earlier than usual. He wanted to catch the woman at the start of her journey, hoping she might be more willing to talk before the long walk ahead had sapped her energy. He parked his patrol car a block away from her house and waited. As the first hints of dawn colored the sky, he saw her emerge. Even from a distance, he could see the strain in her movements as she began her long trek. Rohn waited until she had walked a few blocks before slowly driving up beside her. He rolled down his window, his heart pounding with nervous energy. "Good morning," he said softly, not wanting to startle her. The woman turned, recognition flickering in her eyes. "Good morning, officer," she replied, her voice wary but not unfriendly. Rohn took a deep breath. "I know you've said before that you're fine walking, but I was hoping we could talk for a moment. My name is Mark Rohn. I've been an officer in this town for over 10 years, and I've noticed your daily walks for a while now. I'm concerned." The woman slowed her pace but didn't stop. "I appreciate your concern, Officer Rohn, but as I've said before, I'm fine." Rohn nodded, choosing his next words carefully. "I believe you're strong enough to handle this. That's clear from what you do every day. But I also know that sometimes even the strongest people need a little help. I followed you yesterday. I hope you can forgive me for that. I saw you arrive at the hospital, and I saw you with your children when you got home." At the mention of her children, the woman stopped abruptly. She turned to face Rohn fully, a mix of emotions playing across her face: fear, defiance, and a hint of desperation. "Are you threatening me?" she asked, her voice low and intense. "Because if you think you can use my children to—" No, Rohn interrupted, horrified at the misunderstanding. "That's not it at all. I'm not here to cause any trouble. I just want to understand, to see if there's any way I can help." The woman stared at him for a long moment, seeming to weigh his sincerity. Finally, she sighed, her shoulders slumping slightly. "My name is Maria," she said quietly, "and I walk because I have to. It's as simple as that." Rohn nodded encouragingly. "Can you tell me more, Maria? Why do you have to walk so far?" Maria glanced at her watch, then back at Rohn. "I can't be late for my shift, but if you really want to know, meet me here after work. I'll be passing by around 7 p.m. Rohn agreed readily, thanking Maria for her willingness to talk. As he watched her continue her journey, he felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. He was finally going to get some answers, but he had a feeling they wouldn't be easy to hear. The day seemed to crawl by as Rohn went about his regular duties. His mind kept wandering back to Maria, imagining the miles she was covering while he drove comfortably in his patrol car. At 7 p.m. sharp, Rohn was parked at the agreed-upon spot. He didn't have to wait long before he saw Maria's familiar figure approaching. Even from a distance, he could see the exhaustion in her gait. As Maria neared the car, Rohn stepped out, not wanting to make her feel trapped or intimidated. "Thank you for meeting me, Maria," he said softly. Maria nodded, leaning against a nearby fence for support. "You wanted to know why I walked," she began, her voice tired but steady. "It's because I have no other choice. My car broke down months ago and I can't afford to fix it. Public transportation doesn't run early enough for me to get to work on time, and I can't risk losing my job. My kids, they need me to provide for them. I have 2 children, Jaden, he's 12, and Aisha, she's 7. They're everything to me. Their father, he left us 3 years ago, just packed up and disappeared, left us with nothing but debt and broken promises." Rohn listened intently, his heart heavy. "Isn't there anyone who could give you a ride? Or maybe the hospital has some kind of program?" Maria's voice cracked slightly, but she pressed on. "I treat everything, carpooling, ride-sharing apps, even asking neighbors for help. But nothing was reliable enough. I can't afford to be late, to risk losing this job. I have to do it for the kids." As Maria spoke, Rohn found himself transported back to his own childhood. He remembered the struggles his single mother had faced, working multiple jobs to keep food on the table. He thought of the neighbors who had stepped in to help, offering rides or watching him after school. Without their support, where would he be today? "The walking, it's hard," Maria continued, pulling Rohn back to the present. "Every step hurts some days, but when I think of giving up, I remember why I'm doing this. I want my kids to have a better life, a future that isn't defined by struggle like mine has been." She turned to Rohn, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Jaden is so smart. He loves science, always talking about becoming a doctor someday. And Aisha, she's got this amazing artistic talent. I want them to be able to follow their dreams, to not have to worry about how they'll pay the bills or put food on the table." Adi, Rohn felt a lump forming in his throat. Maria's love for her children, her willingness to sacrifice everything for their future, was palpable. "That's why I walk," Maria said softly. "Because every step, every blister, every ache, it's bringing my children closer to the future they deserve. I can't let them down. I won't." As Maria's words faded into silence, Rohn found himself overwhelmed with emotion. He thought of all the times he had driven past Maria, seeing her only as a curious anomaly in his orderly patrol route. Now he saw her for who she truly was: a mother, a fighter, a beacon of hope and determination, in a world that often seemed devoid of both. "Maria," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion, "I had no idea. Your strength, it's incredible." Maria managed a small smile. "It's not strength, Officer Rohn. It's love. When you have people depending on you, you find reserves you never knew you had." As they pulled up in front of Maria's small house, Rohn made a decision. "Maria, I want to help, not as a handout, but as a member of this community. We're supposed to look out for each other, right?" Maria hesitated, her hand on the door handle. "I appreciate the thought, Officer Rohn, but—" "Please," Rohn interrupted gently. "Call me Mark. And just think about it, okay? You don't have to do this alone." Maria smiled sadly. "I appreciate the offer, Officer Rohn, but I've learned not to expect miracles. This is my life, and I'll keep doing what I need to do for my children." As Maria pushed herself off the fence, preparing to continue her long walk home, Rohn made a silent vow. He might not be able to solve all of Maria's problems, but he was determined to find some way to ease her burden. Watching her disappear into the growing darkness, Rohn felt a renewed sense of purpose. In all his years of policing, he'd focused on maintaining order and enforcing the law. But now he realized that sometimes serving the community meant going above and beyond the call of duty. As he drove home that night, Rohn began to form a plan. He didn't know exactly how yet, but he was going to find a way to help Maria, not just for her sake, but for her children, and for all the other unseen struggle happening right under everyone's noses in their community. The image of Maria trudging mile after mile in worn-out shoes, her spirit unbroken despite the daily hardship, stayed with Rohn. It was a powerful reminder of the quiet heroism that often goes unnoticed in everyday life. As he pulled into his driveway, Rohn made a decision. Tomorrow he would start reaching out to his contacts in the community. Someone, somewhere, had to have a solution that could help Maria. For the first time in years, Rohn felt the true weight of his badge. It wasn't just about enforcing laws. It was about lifting up those who needed it most. And right now, Maria needed all the help she could get. With renewed determination, Rohn entered his home, his mind already working on ways to make a difference in Maria's life. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but if Maria could walk 20 miles every day for her family, he could certainly put in the effort to find her some help. As he drifted off to sleep that night, Rohn's last thoughts were of Maria and her children. He silently promised them and himself that things would get better. Somehow, some way, He would make sure of it. Officer Mark Rohn sat at his kitchen table, a notepad in front of him filled with scribbled names and numbers. It was well past midnight, but sleep was the furthest thing from his mind. Ever since his conversation with Maria, he had been consumed with the desire to help her and her children. He knew he couldn't solve all their problems, but he was determined to at least ease the burden of Maria's daily 20-mile walk. The image of her trudging along the roadside day after day, rain or shine, had become a constant presence in his thoughts. "All right," he muttered to himself, tapping his pen against the notepad. "Where do we start?" Rohn had spent the past few days discreetly reaching out to various members of the community. He was careful not to reveal too much about Maria's situation, respecting her privacy while still conveying the urgency of the need. His first call had been to Mike, the owner of the local auto repair shop. Mike had been hesitant at first, wary of getting involved in what he saw as a potential charity case. But as Rohn explained the situation, leaving out names but emphasizing the determination of the woman who walked 20 miles a day to provide for her family, Mike's resistance had crumbled. "Tell you what, Mark," Mike had said, his gruff voice softening, "bring the car in. I'll take a look at it, no charge, and whatever parts we need, I'll get them at cost. It's the least I can do." Encouraged by Mike's response, Rohn had expanded his reach. He contacted local businesses, explained the situation to fellow officers, and even reached out to some of the staff at St. Mary's Hospital, where Maria worked. The response had been overwhelming. People who had seen Maria walking but never knew her story were moved to action. The owner of the local diner offered to provide meals for Maria and her children while the car was being repaired. The shoe store downtown promised a pair of comfortable, durable walking shoes. Even the local grocery store pledged to deliver a week's worth of groceries to Maria's home. As word spread, more and more people wanted to help. Rohn found himself fielding calls and messages from townspeople he'd never even met, all asking how they could contribute. "It's amazing, Sarah," Rohn's wife said as she brought him a fresh cup of coffee. "I had no idea so many people would want to get involved." Rohn nodded, a small smile playing on his lips. "That's the thing about this town. When push comes to shove, people really do care about their neighbors." But even as the support poured in, Rohn was careful to keep Maria in the dark about the plans. He wanted to respect her dignity and her fierce independence. This wasn't about charity or handouts. It was about a community coming together to support one of its own. The next morning, Rohn headed to the station early. He had a meeting scheduled with the chief to discuss his plan and ensure everything was above board. Chief Rodriguez listened intently as Rohn laid out the situation and his proposed solution. When Rohn finished speaking, the chief leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression on his face. "You know, Rohn," he said slowly, "when you first came to me about this, I was worried you were getting too personally involved. But hearing everything you've put together, I'm impressed. This is what community policing is all about." Rohn felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, sir. I couldn't stand by and do nothing." The chief nodded. "I understand. And I want you to know that the department fully supports this initiative. In fact, I'd like to contribute personally, and I think we can arrange for a few officers to help with the carpooling until the car is fixed." With the chief's approval, Rohn felt a renewed sense of purpose. He spent the rest of the day coordinating with various community members, ironing out the details of the plan. By the end of the week, everything was in place. Mike from the auto shop had looked at Maria's car and determined what repairs were needed. The local bank had agreed to set up a special account for the fundraiser, ensuring all donations were properly tracked and used. Rohn had even managed to arrange for temporary transportation for Maria while her car was being repaired. A rotating schedule of volunteers, including several of his fellow officers, had signed up to give her rides to and from work. As he stood in the police station's break room pinning up a sign-up sheet for the carpool volunteers, Rohn overheard two of his colleagues talking. "Hey, did you hear about that fundraiser Rohn is organizing?" Officer Johnson asked, Officer Martinez nodded. Yeah, for that woman who walks to work every day, right? I've seen her a few times on my patrols. Never knew her story, though. Johnson shook his head. It's something else, isn't it? Makes you think about all the struggles people might be going through that we never even notice. Rohn smiled to himself as he finished pinning up the sheet. The conversation was a testament to how quickly word had spread and how deeply Maria's story had resonated with people. Later that day, Rohn received a call from Emily, one of the nurses at St. Mary's Hospital. She had been one of the first people he'd reached out to when he started planning this initiative. "Mark, you won't believe this," Emily said, her voice brimming with excitement. "We put out a donation box in the staff room just like you suggested. In just 3 days, we've collected over $500, and that's not even counting the people who've offered to contribute directly to the fundraiser account." Rohn felt a lump form in his throat. That's incredible, Emily. Thank you so much for organizing that. Are you kidding? We should be thanking you for bringing this to our attention. Maria is such a hard worker, always with a smile on her face. None of us had any idea what she was going through. We're just glad we can help. As the days passed, the support continued to pour in. Local businesses held special promotions, donating a portion of their proceeds to the fundraiser. The town's annual 5K run, usually held to raise money for the local animal shelter, decided to split this year's proceeds between the shelter and Maria's fund. Even the local elementary school got involved. When the principal heard about Maria's situation, she organized a Walk for Kindness event. Students collected pledges for every lap they walked around the school track, with all the money going to the fundraiser. Rohn found himself constantly amazed by the outpouring of generosity. People who had never met Maria were touched by her story and eager to help. It wasn't just about the money either. Many offered their time and skills as well. A local seamstress volunteered to alter some donated clothes for Maria and her children. A retired teacher offered free tutoring for Jaden and Aisha. The owner of a small tech company even promised to donate a refurbished laptop to help with the children's schoolwork. As the fund grew, Rohn realized they would have enough not just to fix Maria's car, but to provide her with some additional support as well. He reached out to a financial advisor who agreed to meet with Maria pro bono to help her set up a savings plan and budget. Throughout it all, Rohn was careful to keep the full extent of the community's response from Maria. He wanted it to be a surprise, a moment of joy and relief after so much struggle. But he also wanted to prepare her, to ensure she wouldn't feel overwhelmed or uncomfortable with the support. One evening, about 2 weeks into the fundraising efforts, Rohn drove to Maria's house. He found her sitting on the front porch, watching as Jaden and Aisha played in the small yard. "Evening, Maria," he called as he approached. "How are you doing?" Maria smiled, though Rohn could see the exhaustion in her eyes. "We're managing, Mark. Thanks for asking. And thank you again for arranging those rides to work. It's been a big help." Rohn nodded, taking a seat next to her on the porch steps. "I'm glad to hear that. Actually, that's part of why I'm here. I wanted to talk to you about something." Maria turned to him, her expression curious but slightly wary. "Oh? Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Rohn assured her quickly. "More than fine, actually. Maria, do you remember when I told you about how my family struggled when I was a kid, and how the community stepped in to help?" Maria nodded slowly. "I remember." Rohn took a deep breath. "Well, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, about how sometimes accepting help isn't a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. It takes courage to let others in, to allow your community to support you." He paused, watching Maria's face carefully. "The thing is, Maria, your story, it's touched a lot of people. People who've seen you walking every day but never knew why. People who work with you at the hospital. Even people who've never met you but have heard about your dedication to your family." Maria's eyes widened slightly. "What are you saying, Mark? I'm saying that the community wants to help Maria. Not because they pity you, but because they admire you. Your strength, your determination. It's inspired people. They want to show you that you're not alone in this. Rohn could see the conflict in Maria's eyes, the pride that had kept her going for so long, warring with the hope of a lighter burden. I don't know what to say, Maria whispered. I'm not looking for handouts, Mark. I've always taken care of myself, of my kids. Rohn nodded, understanding. I know that, Maria, and that's not what this is about. This is about a community coming together to support one of their own, just like they did for my family when I was a kid. It's not charity, it's neighbors. Helping neighbors. He reached out, gently placing a hand on Maria's shoulder. You don't have to decide anything right now, but I want you to know that there are people out there who want to help. Not because they think you can't handle things on your own, but because they believe you shouldn't have to. Maria was quiet for a long moment, her gaze fixed on her children playing in the yard. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. I've been so focused on being strong for them, she said softly, on not letting them see how hard things have been. Maybe I've been too proud. Rohn squeezed her shoulder gently. There's nothing to be ashamed of, Maria. You've done an incredible job. But it's okay to let others help sometimes. It doesn't make you any less strong or less of a provider for your kids. As if on cue, Jaden and Aisha came running up to the porch, their faces flushed with exertion and happiness. Mom! Officer Rohn! Jaden called out. Did you see how high I can jump now? Aisha chimed in. And I can do a cartwheel. Want to see? Maria laughed, the sound filled with both joy and a touch of weariness. That's wonderful, sweethearts. Maybe you can show us tomorrow, okay? It's almost bedtime now. As the children headed inside, Maria turned back to Rohn. They deserve so much more than I can give them, she said softly. Rohn shook his head. Maria, you give them everything. Your love, your time, your endless effort. But it's okay to accept help in giving them even more. That's what community is all about. Maria took a deep breath, then nodded slowly. Okay, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Okay, I think I'm ready to accept some help. For them. Rohn felt a wave of relief wash over him. That's great, Maria. Really great. I promise you, you won't regret this. And remember, you're not just receiving help. You're giving something too. You're giving people the chance to be part of something good, to make a real difference. As Rohn drove home that night, he felt a sense of accomplishment unlike anything he'd experienced in his career before. He knew there was still work to be done, details to be ironed out, but the hardest part, getting Maria to accept help, was over. Over the next few days, Rohn worked tirelessly to coordinate the various aspects of the community's response. Mike from the auto shop reported that Maria's car would be ready by the end of the week. The new shoes were picked up from the store downtown. The financial advisor was briefed and ready to meet with Maria. Finally, everything was in place. Rohn decided to reveal the full extent of the community's support to Maria on a Saturday morning. He arranged for her and the kids to be picked up and brought to the auto shop under the pretense of discussing the car repairs. As Rohn waited outside the shop that morning, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He hoped Maria would be pleased, that she would see this outpouring of support for what it was. Not charity, but a community coming together. When Mike's tow truck pulled up with Maria and her children, Rohn couldn't help but smile at the looks of confusion on their faces. Mark, Maria asked, as she stepped out of the truck, what's going on? I thought we were just coming to talk about the car repairs. Rohn grinned. Well, Maria, there's been a bit of a change of plans. You remember how I told you the community wanted to help? Well, they've done a lot more than just talk about it. He gestured toward the garage door. Are you ready for a surprise? Maria looked uncertain, but Jaden and Aisha were bouncing with excitement. A surprise? Is it a good surprise, Mom? Aisha asked. Maria managed a small smile. I hope so, sweetie. Okay, Mark, we're ready. Rohn nodded to Mike, who hit the button to raise the garage door. As it lifted, revealing the scene inside, Rohn heard Maria gasp. There, in the center of the garage, was Maria's car. But it wasn't the rusted, broken-down vehicle she remembered. The body had been repaired and repainted, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. New tires, a new battery, even a new child. Seat for Aisha were visible. But that wasn't all. Surrounding the car were people, dozens of them, hospital staff in scrubs, police officers in uniform, local business owners, and regular townspeople, all of them wearing big smiles and holding signs that read, "We've got your back, Maria, and no one walks alone in our town." Maria stood frozen, her hands covering her mouth in shock. Jaden and Aisha looked around in wonder, their eyes wide with excitement. Rohn stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Maria's shoulder. "Maria," he said softly, "this is what community looks like. All these people, they've been touched by your story, your determination. They wanted to do something to help, to show you that you're not alone in this." He gestured to the car. "Your car's been fully repaired. Mike here did most of the work himself, and local businesses donated parts and supplies." Mike stepped forward, holding out a set of keys. "She's all ready to go, Maria. Oil's been changed, new filters, everything. She'll get you where you need to go for a good long while." Maria reached out with trembling hands to take the keys, tears streaming down her face. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Emily, the nurse from the hospital, stepped forward. "You don't have to say anything, Maria. We're just glad we could help. You've been an inspiration to all of us." One by one, people came forward, each with their own contribution. The shoe store owner presented Maria with a pair of comfortable walking shoes, just in case. The grocery store manager handed over a stack of gift cards. The financial advisor introduced himself, offering his services to help Maria plan for the future. Throughout it all, Maria stood in stunned silence, occasionally wiping tears from her eyes. Jaden and Aisha darted around, examining the car and chatting excitedly with the assembled crowd. Finally, Rohn stepped forward again. "Maria," he said gently, "I know this is a lot to take in, but I want you to know that this isn't charity. This is a community recognizing one of its own who's been struggling and deciding to lend a hand, just like others did for my family when I was a kid." Maria nodded, seemingly unable to speak. She looked around at the gathered crowd, at her gleaming car, at her excited children. Then, to everyone's surprise, she let out a laugh, a real, joyous laugh that seemed to come from deep within her. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "All of you. I never imagined." She trailed off, overcome. Jaden stepped up beside his mother, placing a hand on her arm. "Mom," he said, his voice filled with a maturity beyond his years. "It's okay. You've always taught us that family helps family. These people, they're like our family. Now, right?" Maria looked down at her son, fresh tears welling in her eyes. She pulled both Jaden and Aisha close, hugging them tightly. "You're right, sweetheart. They are family." Turning to face the crowd, Maria took a deep breath. "I don't know how to thank you all," she began, her voice growing stronger with each word. "For so long, I've been focused on just putting one foot in front of the other, on doing whatever it took to provide for my children. I forgot what it meant to be part of a community." She looked around at the faces before her, some familiar, many unknown, but all wearing expressions of warmth and support. "You've given us more than just a car or supplies. You've given us hope, a reminder that we're not alone. And I promise you I'll pay this kindness forward however I can." A round of applause broke out, echoing through the garage. As it died down, Chief Rodriguez stepped forward. "Maria," he said, His usually gruff voice softened with emotion. "I hope you know that this isn't a one-time thing. We're here for you and your family, today and every day moving forward." Rohn nodded in agreement. "That's right. We've set up a support network. If you ever need a ride or help with childcare or anything at all, there are people ready to step in." Maria nodded, overwhelmed but grateful. "Thank you, all of you. I don't know what else to say except thank you." As the gathering began to disperse, people coming forward to offer hugs and words of encouragement, Rohn stood back, watching the scene with a sense of pride and accomplishment. This was what being a police officer was truly about, not just enforcing laws, but building and strengthening communities. Later that afternoon, as Maria prepared to drive her newly repaired car home for the first time, she beckoned Rohn over. "Mark," she said softly, "I can't thank you enough for what you've done. Not just the car and everything else, but for showing me that it's okay to accept help, that it doesn't make me weak or a failure." Rohn smiled. "You're welcome, Maria. But remember, I just got the ball rolling. All these people, they stepped up because of you, because your strength and determination inspired them." Maria nodded, her eyes shining. "I know, and I promise, I'm going to find ways to give back, to be there for others the way this community has been there for us." As Maria drove away, Jaden and Aisha waving excitedly from the back seat, Rohn felt a profound sense of satisfaction. He knew that Maria's journey wasn't over. There would still be challenges ahead. But now she faced them not as a solitary figure walking a lonely road, but as a cherished member of a caring community. In the weeks and months that followed, the impact of that day rippled through the town. Inspired by Maria's story and the community's response, others began to look out for their neighbors more, to offer help where it was needed. The town's annual charity drive saw record participation, and new volunteer programs sprang up to assist struggling families. Maria, true to her word, became a force for good in her own right. She started a support group for single parents at the hospital, sharing her experiences and the lessons she'd learned about resilience and accepting help. On her days off, she could often be found volunteering at the local food bank or mentoring at-risk youth. Jaden and Aisha thrived with the added support. Jaden's grades improved dramatically with the help of his new tutor. Aisha's artwork, nurtured by classes at the local community center, began winning ribbons at school fairs. For Rohn, the experience changed his approach to policing. He became an advocate for community-oriented programs, encouraging his fellow officers to look beyond just enforcing laws, to truly serving and uplifting their community. 1 year had passed since the day the community had come together to support Maria and her children. The town had changed in subtle but significant ways, the ripple effects of that act of kindness continuing to spread. Officer Mark Rohn stood at the window of his patrol car, sipping coffee and watching the early morning bustle of Main Street. As he observed the scene before him, Rohn couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in the past year. The town seemed more vibrant somehow, more connected. People greeted each other warmly as they passed on the sidewalk, and there was a palpable sense of community in the air. His radio crackled to life, interrupting his thoughts. "All units, be advised, we have a report of a disturbance at 1242 Elm Street. Any units in the vicinity, please respond." Rohn recognized the address immediately. It was just a few blocks from where Maria lived. Without hesitation, he keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Rohn. I'm nearby. I'll check it out." As he drove toward Elm Street, Rohn found himself hoping that everything was all right with Maria and her family. Over the past year, he had kept in touch with them, watching with pride as they flourished with the support of the community. Arriving at the scene, Rohn was relieved to see that the house in question wasn't Maria's. It was a small, slightly run-down bungalow, a few doors down. As he approached, he could hear raised voices coming from inside. Rohn knocked on the door, announcing his presence. "Police, is everything okay in there?" The voices inside quieted, and after a moment, the door opened slightly. A young woman peered out, her eyes red and puffy from crying. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "We didn't mean to disturb anyone." Rohn took in the scene quickly. The woman looked exhausted and stressed, and behind her he could see a small child clinging to her leg. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Rohn. Is everything all right? Are you safe?" The woman nodded, then hesitated. It's just been a rough morning. My son, he's autistic, and sometimes he has meltdowns. My husband and I, we were arguing about what to do." Rohn's expression softened. "I see. May I come in? Perhaps I can help." The woman looked uncertain for a moment, then nodded, opening the door wider. As Rohn stepped inside, he saw a man sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. The living room was cluttered, with toys strewn about and dishes piled in the sink, visible through the kitchen doorway. "I'm Sarah," the woman said, gesturing to her husband. "This is Mike, and this is our son, Tommy." She placed a hand on the head of the boy, still clinging to her leg. Rohn knelt down to Tommy's level. "Hi there, Tommy. I'm Officer Rohn. It's nice to meet you." Tommy didn't respond, keeping his face hidden against his mother's leg. Sarah sighed. "He's had a rough morning." "We all have." Mike looked up, his face etched with exhaustion and frustration. "We're at our wits' end, officer. Tommy's therapist moved away last month, and we haven't been able to find a new one. The waiting lists are months long. This morning, it just all came to a head." Rohn nodded, understanding. He thought back to the changes in the community over the past year, the increased support and connections that had formed. "You know," he said slowly, "I think I might know someone who could help." He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. After a brief conversation, he turned back to Sarah and Mike. "There's someone I'd like you to meet. She's helped a lot of families in tough situations. Would it be okay if she came over?" Sarah and Mike exchanged a glance, then nodded. "At this point, we're willing to try anything," Mike said. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Rohn opened it to reveal Maria, her face filled with concern and compassion. "Mark, you said someone needed help?" Rohn ushered her in, making introductions. As Maria took in the scene, her expression softened. "Oh, sweethearts," she said gently. "It looks like you've been having a rough time." Sarah burst into tears, the stress of the morning finally overwhelming her. Maria immediately moved to her side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "It's okay," she soothed. "You're not alone anymore." Over the next hour, Maria listened as Sarah and Mike poured out their struggles. She shared her own experiences as a single mother, the challenges she had faced, and how the support of the community had changed everything. "I know it feels overwhelming right now," Maria said, "but there are people who want to help. You just need to know where to look." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. "I know a therapist who specializes in working with autistic children. She might be able to see Tommy sooner than the waiting lists you've encountered. And there's a support group for parents of special needs children that meets at the community center. They've been a lifeline for so many families." As Maria spoke, Rohn watched the tension slowly ease from Sarah and Mike's faces. Hope, tentative but real, began to replace the despair in their eyes. "But what about today?" Sarah asked, glancing at Tommy, who had finally emerged from behind her leg and was now quietly playing with a toy car. "We're both supposed to be at work, but Tommy's school called and said they couldn't handle him today." Maria thought for a moment, then smiled. "I have a day off. Why don't I stay with Tommy? It'll give you both a chance to regroup, and I can start making some calls to get you connected with resources." Sarah and Mike looked at each other, stunned by the offer. "We couldn't ask you to do that," Mike began, but Maria waved him off. "You're not asking, I'm offering. A year ago, I was in a place where I thought I had to handle everything on my own. I learned that accepting help isn't a weakness. It's what allows us to be strong for others when they need it. As Sarah and Mike prepared to leave for work, visibly relieved and grateful, Rohn pulled Maria aside. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. "I knew you'd know how to help." Maria smiled, her eyes shining with purpose. "I meant what I said last year, Mark. I'm going to pay forward every kindness that was shown to me. This is just the beginning." Rohn nodded, feeling a swell of pride. As he prepared to leave, he watched Maria settle on the floor next to Tommy, gently engaging him in play. The transformation from the scared, isolated woman he had first encountered walking alone in the pre-dawn hours to this confident, compassionate pillar of the community never ceased to amaze him. Over the next few weeks, Rohn kept in touch with Sarah and Mike, checking in on their progress. He learned that Maria had indeed connected them with a therapist for Tommy, and that they had started attending the support group at the community center. Slowly but surely, their lives were beginning to stabilize. One evening, as Rohn was finishing up his patrol, he received a call from dispatch. "Officer Rohn, we have a situation at the community center. Nothing dangerous, but they're requesting your presence specifically." Intrigued, Rohn made his way to the community center. As he walked in, he was greeted by an unexpected sight. The main hall was filled with people, many of whom he recognized from around town. At the front of the room stood Maria, Sarah, and Mike. As Rohn entered, Maria spotted him and waved him forward. "Officer Rohn," she called out. "We've been waiting for you." Confused but curious, Rohn made his way to the front of the room. "What's going on here?" he asked. Maria smiled, her eyes twinkling with excitement. "Well, after helping Sarah and Mike, I got to thinking. There are so many families in our community who are struggling, who don't know where to turn for help. So, with the support of the community center, we've decided to start a new program. We're calling it Neighbors in Need." Sarah stepped forward, her face glowing with newfound confidence. "The idea is to create a network of support for families facing all kinds of challenges, whether it's special needs children, financial difficulties, health issues, or anything else. We want to connect people with resources, but more than that, we want to foster a sense of community where people know they can turn to their neighbors for help." Mike nodded, adding, "We've already had an overwhelming response. People are volunteering their time, skills, and resources. It's incredible." Rohn looked around the room, taking in the eager faces of the assembled crowd. He felt a lump form in his throat as he realized the full impact of what had started with one simple act of noticing a woman walking alone on the road. Maria turned to Rohn, her expression serious. "We wanted you to be here for this, Mark, because in many ways, you're the one who started it all. By taking the time to notice someone in need, by rallying the community to help, you set off a chain reaction of kindness that's still growing. We'd like you to be part of this program, to help us identify families who might need support." Rohn was speechless for a moment, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. Finally, he managed to nod. "I'd be honored," he said, his voice thick with emotion. As the meeting continued, plans were made and responsibilities assigned. The energy in the room was palpable, a sense of shared purpose and community, spirit unlike anything Rohn had ever experienced. In the weeks and months that followed, the Neighbors in Need program flourished. Rohn found himself at the heart of it, using his position as a police officer to identify families who could benefit from the program's support. He watched with pride as the community came together time and time again, offering help in ways both big and small. There was the single father who had lost his job and was struggling to make ends meet. The program connected him with job training opportunities and provided temporary assistance with bills until he got back on his feet. Then there was the elderly couple who could no longer maintain their home. Volunteers from the program spent weekends helping with repairs and yard work, ensuring the couple could stay in the home they loved. Each success story seemed to inspire more people to get involved. Local businesses began offering job placements and internships, The hospital started a program to help families navigate complex medical systems. Even the school district got involved, creating a mentorship program for at-risk youth. Through it all, Maria remained a driving force, her own experiences fueling her passion to help others. Rohn marveled at her transformation, remembering the withdrawn, exhausted woman he had first encountered. Now she radiated confidence and purpose, her smile brightening every room she entered. One evening, about 6 months after the program's inception, Rohn received a call from Maria. "Mark," she said, her voice filled with excitement, "I need you to come to the community center right away. There's someone you need to meet." Intrigued, Rohn made his way to the center. As he walked in, he saw Maria standing with a young woman he didn't recognize. The woman looked nervous, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "Mark," Maria said, as he approached, "this is Amanda. Amanda, this is Officer Rohn, the one I was telling you about." Amanda nodded shyly, not quite, meeting Rohn's eyes. "It's nice to meet you," she mumbled. Maria placed a gentle hand on Amanda's shoulder. "Amanda came to us for help today, Mark. Her situation, well, it reminded me a lot of my own." As Maria explained, Rohn felt a sense of déjà vu wash over him. Amanda was a single mother of 2 young children. She had lost her job recently and was on the verge of eviction. With no car and limited resources, she had been walking miles each day to job interviews, leaving her children with a neighbor. "When I saw her walking along the road this morning, it was like looking at myself a year ago," Maria said softly. "I knew we had to help." Rohn nodded, understanding immediately. "What do you need from me?" he asked. Maria smiled. "Well, we've already got a plan in motion. The program is going to help with her rent for the next 2 months while she gets back on her feet. We've got job leads for her and childcare arranged, but we were hoping you might be able to coordinate with some of the local businesses, see if anyone has a used car they'd be willing to donate or sell at a reduced price." Rohn felt a warmth spread through his chest. Here was Maria, taking the kindness that had been shown to her and paying it forward in the most direct way possible. "Consider it done," he said firmly. As they worked out the details, Amanda's initial nervousness began to fade. By the end of the meeting, she was smiling, tears of relief and gratitude shining in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she said, her voice wavering. "I was so scared, so alone. I never imagined—" Maria pulled her into a hug. "You're not alone anymore," she said fiercely. "We've got your back." As Rohn left the community center that night, he found himself reflecting on the incredible journey of the past year and a half. What had started as a simple act of noticing someone in need had blossomed into a movement that was changing the entire fabric of the community. He thought of Maria and how far she had come, from a woman walking alone in the darkness to a beacon of hope for others. He thought of Sarah and Mike, who had gone from feeling isolated and overwhelmed to becoming active participants in building a supportive community. And now Amanda, at the beginning of her own journey of transformation. The next day, Rohn threw himself into the task of finding a car for Amanda. He reached out to local dealerships and mechanics, explaining the situation and the Neighbors in Need program. The response was overwhelming. By the end of the week, he had 3 offers of used cars in good condition, all at significantly reduced prices. It was Mike from the auto shop who finally came through with the perfect solution. "I've got a car that was traded in recently," he told Rohn over the phone. "It needs a little work, but nothing major. If the program can cover the cost of parts, I'll do the labor for free. We can have it ready for Amanda in a week." Rohn felt a lump form in his throat. "Mike, that's incredibly generous. Thank you." Mike's gruff voice softened. "Hey, this program helped my family when we needed it. It's the least I can do to give back." A week later, Rohn stood with Maria and Amanda in Mike's auto shop, watching as Mike handed over the keys to a newly refurbished sedan. Amanda's hands shook as she took them, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "This is going to change everything." Maria wrapped an arm around Amanda's shoulders. "Just promise that when you're back on your feet, you'll find a way to help someone else in need. That's how we keep this going." Amanda nodded firmly. "I promise. I'll never forget this kindness." As they watched Amanda drive away in her new car, Maria turned to Rohn. "You know, Mark, sometimes I still can't believe how much has changed. A year and a half ago, I was in Amanda's shoes, feeling hopeless and alone. Now look at us." Rohn nodded, a smile playing on his lips. "It's pretty incredible. But you know what amazes me most? It's not just the big things like cars and jobs. It's the way people in this town look at each other now. There's more kindness, more awareness. People are quicker to offer help and more willing to accept it." Maria's eyes shone with pride. "That's the real change, isn't it? We're not just helping individuals. We're changing the culture of our entire community." As if to prove her point, at that moment, a young man who had been working on a car in the corner of the shop approached them. "Excuse me," he said hesitantly. "I couldn't help overhearing. This program you were talking about, Neighbors in Need. Is there any way I could get involved?" Maria's face lit up. "Absolutely. We're always looking for volunteers. What kind of skills do you have?" As Maria chatted with the young man, explaining the program and how he could contribute, Rohn felt a sense of awe wash over him. This was how real, lasting change happened. Not through grand gestures or sweeping policies, but through individual acts of kindness that inspired others to action. As the Neighbors in Need program continued to flourish, its impact on the community became increasingly evident. The partnership with the community college proved particularly fruitful, opening doors for many who had previously seen higher education as an unattainable dream. One crisp autumn morning, Rohn received a call from Maria, her voice brimming with excitement. "Mark, you won't believe this. Remember Amanda, the single mom we helped a few months ago?" "Of course," Rohn replied, smiling at the memory of the grateful young woman driving away in her newly refurbished car. "Well, she just got accepted into the nursing program at the community college. The scholarship we set up through Neighbors in Need made it possible. She's going to be able to build a better future for herself and her kids." Rohn felt a wave of pride wash over him. "That's incredible, Maria. She's come so far in such a short time." "That's not all," Maria continued. "She's also volunteering with us now, mentoring other single parents who are just starting out in the program. She says she wants to be for them what we were for her." As Rohn hung up the phone, he marveled at how the ripples of kindness continued to spread. Amanda's story was just one of many success stories emerging from the program, each one inspiring more people to get involved and give back. He reflected on the incredible journey of the past 2 years. He thought of Maria and how she had risen from a desperate single mother to a fearless community leader. He thought of Sarah and Mike, who turned their private battles into a wellspring of strength for others. He thought of Amanda, now chasing her dream of nursing, repaying the community that pulled her from the brink. But beyond these lives reborn, Rohn saw a deeper truth. The town itself had awakened. A quiet revolution of compassion and unity now pulsed through its streets, its people quicker to lend a hand, sharper to spot a neighbor's silent cry. The town thrummed with life, a living testament to what connection could forge. As he turned onto that fateful road where Maria's lonely march once caught his eye, Rohn froze. The path lay bare, no weary shadows dragging through the dawn's gloom. Struggles hadn't vanished. Life would always bare its teeth. But now, no one faced the fight alone. Maria's unyielding spirit and Rohn's relentless compassion had ignited a wildfire of change, not just in her world, but in every heart that dared to listen. The lesson? One spark of courage, one act of care can rewrite a town's soul. Hit that subscribe button now Don't miss the next story that could change how you see the world. Here's the real question. Should Rohn have intervened in Maria's life, or was it wrong to meddle in her prideful struggle? Drop your take below. Let's debate it. Before you go, live by this. In the quiet steps of one, a community finds its strength. In the reach of many, one finds their wings. In the quiet steps of one, a community finds its strength. In the reach of many, one finds their wings.